Welcome, girls. Guy. We have another session by friends of Figma Bosnia with the theme, what is web accessibility? I think this is the one most important thing in the recent couple of months, maybe last year, that we really have a talk about all around over the internet. And there are certain rules that needs to be followed in order to make our web accessible for a lot of people with visual impairing, other kind of disabilities. And I think there's a lot of slides today that we can talk about those people who are impacted and about the people for who we need to design the web in order to be accessible for them with their disabilities. There's a lot of guidelines and principles and rules, and also tips how we can improve our websites to be more accessible for those peoples. At the end of the presentation, there's also a couple of books with the links that you can download, two are PDFs and one is the EPUB download. And I think we can start when people are joining there. We'll see the recordings at the end. The recordings will be available for them. So this session is brought by Friends of Figma Bosnia and Herzegovina in collaboration with the Syndicate. We have talked a lot about the Syndicate. The Syndicate is a group of people here in Bosnia with the main goal to present and raise more awareness about the design community and gathering all design people or people who are working in the design field at one place. My name is Rusmir Nautovic. For those people who don't know me, I'm the community advocate for this region, Bosnia. This session will be recorded as always and will be available later on our YouTube site. All questions that you have, you can just post them in the chat. Just choose to everyone, and please, and most important thing is please be kind to everyone. We have a code of conduct by Figma. So let's start with the first thing. What is web accessibility? I will say the web accessibility makes all our websites usable for people with disabilities. And those disabilities can include visual, auditory, motor, cognitive impairments. And that means that designing our websites, we are allowing users to perceive, understand, and navigate and interact with all those contents that we have provided on our websites and all those functionalities like forms, drop-down menus, any type of interaction, and they need to be accessible regardless of their ability or disability. And accessibility also provides alternative for audio, video, and other media content, and we need to pay a lot of attention on those things because we can always test those websites with different kind of technologies to be sure if they are accessible to all users. Something happens by me, I don't know. So why is web accessibility important? It is important because it helps to ensure that internet is usable by everyone. I think we all have heard or see somebody who's struggling with visiting websites, working with the mobile apps, and I will say they have a little bit more disadvantage than we, and there's a lot of reasons why accessibility should be essential in by designing the website. The first one is the legal compliance. This is the thing that came, I will say, 6 months ago. That is everywhere in the United States and European Union. Every website that is publicly mostly like a newspaper websites and providing information websites needs to be compliant with those accessibility rules. And a lot of countries are giving penalties to the agencies who are not compliant with all those requests that are set up. The second one is the inclusivity. it's also a buzzword that you can hear a lot around. Basically, accessibility needs to ensure that everyone can access and benefit from the information and resources available on the internet in regards of their ability. So it doesn't matter if you're visual impaired, having problems with your hearing, all those information needs to be accessible to everyone. And that's why we have accessibility standards that needs to be there, needs to be paid attention for the people in order to get the information right way. It doesn't matter of way of or kind of their disability. It improves the user experience. They're providing really a better user experience for individuals with disabilities, as well as for the older adults and those who have a limited technology access. We know everyone has an elderly grandma, whoever in our family is a little bit more older. They always struggle to get the information, and that's why sometimes we have those accessibility rules. For example, in the mobile apps, every mobile app needs to allow user through the settings of their phone to increase the size of the fonts. The colors needs to be correct because we never know what kind of disability they have. So in order to provide a little bit more or better information for them, those accessibility rules needs to be considered. Increasing accessibility for assistive technologies, as I mentioned, incorporating accessibility into the design development process, websites getting more usable for individuals who rely on assistive technologies. For example, visual impaired people often use different kind of application that help them to read or go through the content on a website or on a mobile app. So those accessibility needs to be done in the right way, so the readers, the screen readers or alternative keyboard devices needs to interact correctly with the content. Better search engine optimization is always a thing, because it improving the search engine ranking and make them more visible to the users. If the websites are really optimized, like through the SEO and different kind of optimization, your websites will be better ranked and probably flagged as a I will not say flagged as an accessibility web page, but it will get a better ranking, definitely. I will say making those websites accessible. Everyone around us can benefit from the wealth of information and resources available on the internet. There's a lot of companies, or I will say organizations, who are basically defining those web accessibility rules, guidelines, and principles. And one of them is basically I will firstly start as an international organization. Lately, that came the national laws, who are basically involved in making those rules. Then the industry standards, how they evolved through the years. They are also regulating all those rules, like better accessibility reading on the links through the area labels and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of companies who are basically setting those industry standards. They will be mentioned after this slide. And also, they're defining the best practice for the web accessibility. And I think the one of the organization that everyone knows is the World Wide Web Consortium. They're basically an international organization who sets all those standards for webs. And I think probably one in your lifetime you have heard or checked their websites. If you're a developer or a coder or a designer who needs to know how certain components are set or interact, you can go to their webpage and just search everything and just see how they behave on your website. The second one is the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. ISO develops and publishes those international standards for different technologies, company profiles, and they're also including the web accessibility rules. Section 508 is basically part of Rehabilitation Act, and it states in the United States. It's basically a law that requires electronic information technology development procured, maintained, or used by the federal governments to be accessible for people with disabilities. The best case are, for example, the Social Security website. You can really easily navigate through the content and find all this information. Doesn't matter what kind of disability you have. They're taught about everything, about I will say visual impaired things. They have good screen readers on their videos. They have like subtitles, like a CC, and that kind of stuff. And they have really done it well. The one that is like Web Accessibility Initiative is basically a project of W3C. It provides resources and guidelines for making the web accessibility to the people with disability. And there's always the loop, web accessibility, disability, web accessibility, disability. It basically, the main point of following those rules is helping those people. Sometimes we also visit the websites and struggle to find some content, or, for example, if we have a low speed of networking, there's a good way if the website is really well done with all those area labels and alt labels on the images or text. It will show or preload some things. Then you can imagine, okay, there's some content related to this and this, and when the speed is a little bit more up, the rest of the content will be a load. It's the same with loading the CSS that holds a type of font and that kind of stuff. So it mostly impacts at the first point for loading the content, and then the rest is basically helping the people through different kind of accessibility technologies to get their content. The main goal is basically to promote the web accessibility, ensure that internet remains accessible for everyone or usable for everyone. And I will say providing all those guidelines and standards and resources to help a website creators to design and develop accessible website functionalities are basically helping the people with disability and also with people who use assistive technology. We have talked about the principles and guidelines at the beginning. There's a couple of principles that are basically set for web accessibility work or category or field, I don't know how to call it. And those key elements basically needs to be considered when we're designing the websites. And a couple of years ago, we didn't pay attention on those things. We just developed or designed as the designers give to the developers. Developers just done it and push it to the web service. And then with the meantime, how the internet grow and all kind of content on the internet grows, the certain laws and guidelines and principles came in order to help those people. So basically, there's a 4. The one is perceivable. Perceivable is basically all information and user interface components must be presentable to the users in a way that they can perceive, either through visual or auditory or tactile means. The second one is basically operable. My English is always struggles on bad words or hard words. It means that user interface components and navigation must be operatable through the keyboards or other means without using a mouse. At the end of the presentation, I put one link to the blog that shows the best 5 websites who are basically 100% right or done right the whole kind of web accessibility with navigating through the website through the keyboard, like just tabbing and then switching from logo to the navigation, explaining, giving the certain hints what happenings or what the content is about. And that's basically around how the navigation or the components of the websites are operable through the keyboard. The third one is understandable. So the whole content and user interface needs to be easy to understand. It needs to include clear and straightforward language. The navigation should be always consistent, and I will say the predictable behavior and predictable behavior is mostly related to the headers and certain areas where you basically already know from previous experience surfing through the websites what happens when you click on certain elements. And the last one is basically the robust one. The content must be robust enough to be interpreted reliably by many user agents, including assistive technologies. This is also related to all helper apps, screen readers that will help the people to go through the content and better understand the content that we have shown on our websites or mobile apps or any kind of different kind of categories. All those principles, they're providing a framework for creating accessible website, and they really ensure that they are usable by the people with wide range of disabilities. And those principles also helps to ensure that the internet remains again accessible and usable by everyone regardless of their ability. I will go through those principles. Each of those principles have different things that we need to pay attention in order to make our website really 100% accessible for everyone. When we talk about the perceivable principles, information, as we mentioned, information and user interface components needs to be presentable to the user in a way that they can perceive on the first sight. And I will say the first one is we need to provide the text alternatives for non-text content. That means that we need to include alts, description and captions to the videos in order to provide description information for the visual impaired people or users, make it easy to distinguish foreground and background content. We as the designers, we're working through our designs always with different kind of plugins or different kind of tools in order to make the colors a little bit more accessible for visual impaired people. So in order they can better read it, the whole kind of contrasting, paying attention on the contrast. So it's in a range of perceivable principles. Then we need to make it easy to see and hear the content, so providing all kind of captions and audio descriptions on the videos needs to ensure that audio content doesn't start automatically. I think most of the new age browsers per default they're setting all videos to the mute, so you can unmute them manually. And the one of the rules is we need to set those videos muted or turned off or whatever. We also need to provide enough time for the people to read the content. Sometimes this is related to the tickers on the websites. For example, if you hover off a ticker, the ticker needs to stop and or pause. So those things, those are things mostly related to this kind of part of our principles. The blinking and flashing things in the videos also needs to be note for the people, because some people struggling with epilepsy and that kind of stuff. So it's a good to have a pre-warning. This is also related to all videos that we're watching on the Netflix, HBO, whatever. So they always states as a legal issue. Okay, the flashing or blinking content is coming, so be aware. And then helping users to avoid and correct the mistakes. This is related mostly to the forms. I think we mentioned this at the beginning. People needs to provide feedback when the form is filled out incorrectly. So we need to state every error message and help the people just with those messages to let them know or to know them where the error happens. This is also really important for the screen readers. If the people are just using any kind of pre-fill plugins or extensions on their form, like Dashline, populating the username and the password. If something happens, then those error messages needs to be visually state and also good readable with the screen readers. Second one is operable. I need to ask Google how to pronounce it. The principle. This is related, as we mentioned, user needs needs or must be able to operate the user interface, including all those navigations, finding content through the whole website without any assistance. And there's a couple of guidelines as on the previous principles. We need to provide a keyboard access. That means that if the user is interacting through the keyboard, like tabbing and switching from content to content, all those area needs to be included in the diffs. So in order that keyboard or the browser recognize them and just make the content accessible for the people who are using the websites. The second one is, as I say, related to the keyboard. All functionalities available from the keyboard needs to be available or set up in the website, including all those links, buttons, and form controls. And you will see, as I mentioned at the end, on the 5 correct made web accessibilities on a web page, like BBC, the one is of them, how they have set the whole kind of web accessibility. And it's really funny to see that, because we as a designer mostly work on the design, not on the coding. For the people who are working with the coding, mostly they don't pay attention. Like me as a designer, I code. I don't pay too much attention on that, but I always have my developers who check, or QA who will check that at the end and will just tell me, okay, those things are not accessible, please include the code, or tell to me or to the developers what needs to be changed. The third one is making the easy to see and hear content. So this is related to captions and descriptions on a video. You will see, and you probably have seen that often when you go through Instagram, like on the Reels. Every Reels is muted, and they're using a lot of descriptions, like voiceover description, and because sometimes you're watching the video and don't want to unmute the audio. It's the same on a TikTok. On a TikTok, you have ability to read or to see or to set all those captions and just see them on a video itself. And that's a really good thing, because some people are, and especially if they are hearing impaired, then it will help them just to see what is the content about, or context about that kind of video. And often you will see that also when you're watching Netflix and you just have pre-default enabled the captions for the video. We need to allow the people to have control about the time-sensitive content updates. People needs to be able to pause, stop, or hide any content that updates automatically, such like a blinking and flashing. This is related to the tickers, and I don't think anybody use tickers anymore today, but some pages, like newsletter pages, they're using it still. Like WordPress engines, and a lot of VP teams on the WordPress engines have still them somewhere on news magazine teams. Providing a clear, consistent navigation. It needs to be navigation needs to be consistent everywhere on a website, so it's not just on one page, then on all pages, because people are used to click on the same place when they're like habitual thing. When they know where to find certain things, they will not think a lot about that. They will just go on the right side and click on the search or on the menu, that kind of stuff. We need also to provide a clear description, headings, and labels for the people, just to know, okay, this is about this and this and this. And then we also need to find to help users to find the content. In order, when we provide a clear descriptive headings and links, they will allow user to search for content on our website. So, for example, naming the pages, naming the content, naming the headers of certain parts of our websites will definitely help and increase the better searchability on our website, because people are used to type, I don't know, for example, cooking websites, they will definitely type like bread, lunch, breakfast, and everywhere where those things are mentioned or keywords mentioned in the headlines, that they will list it on a search page. So you define your headings and labels and buttons, just the better the searchability will be okay. The next one is understandable principle. There's a lot of principle and guidelines. Sorry for that, but it is what it is. It's related to the content and user interface that really needs to be understandable to the users, especially to the people who have cognitive and learning disabilities. And there's a couple of principles or guidelines in order to make those websites better for them. So this is the third one. So combining all those four, you have 100% great web accessible websites. If you don't meet all those four, it doesn't matter, but providing the most of them will help definitely the people who are struggling with different disabilities to navigate the your website. Sorry. For those people who have cognitive and what did I mention, learning disabilities, the language needs to be simple, so without the technical jargons, because they're really struggling with that, especially the people who have like ADHD. Those description, the headlines needs to be better descriptive, and the links, that means that we use clear descriptive headings and links to help user to understand the whole structure of the web page and relation between the content. Ensuring that the user interface is consistent. We mentioned it a couple of times, so it holds on different principles. Meaningful text alternatives, alt captions, describing depending on load. If all those things are really good set up through the area labels, the screen readers will have a better readability and will get a better output for the people who need it. Providing clear error messages, so we mentioned that with the forms and what happens when you type something. It helps if the description is really well made and describe the problem or the state of something. It will help the users to better react and act based on those messages. And the robust principle is basically the content needs to be good enough to be interpreted by many user agents, inclusive assistive technologies, and guidelines are basically using semantic HTML. So following the rules from H1 to H6 and other parts of a website like paragraphs and links needs to be good structured in order for those readers to be better readable. Also, it will help you definitely to better rank your website. So it's a part of a SEO. So everything is related. So and if you're using non-semantic data like divs and spans, it will definitely have a disadvantage for the readers or assistive technologies to better help the people. Then the content needs to be accessible by all user agents. I don't have a tips or trick on that. Basically, every developer has or QA has their tools for testing that, and just in order to see if everything is okay. So it's not something that we can say, okay, all user agents will read our content or will see our content as a correct. Alternative content for non-text elements, writing description. Often people are just leaving, like when you're developing the websites with the non-code software. Basically, when you put image inside, it will inherit the name of the file as an alt description. Sometimes you have like naming business people sitting at a table, kitchen photo. So it doesn't help people when they're using those technologies, and when the reader says people sitting at the couch or whatever. So what are people doing at the couch? They're reading, they're sitting, they're talking. So you need to be more descriptive for the people to give them more and more insights what's happening on that. As I mentioned a couple of times, using those area attributes are basically accessible rich internet application attribute. You can add it manually. A lot of non-code software today, like Webflow, blocks, and others are basically having those places where you can set them. Area labels are also used for different web components, for example, like a tab navigation. When you have a lot of tabs, it helps to define different actions through the area label. It's not just in order for accessibility, but also because the area labels helping us for a navigational purpose of making a good web accessibility. That means working with a keyboard, giving area labeled by or area tab, and just giving them the 0 or 1 as a what it calls as a function, or I don't know, action. I will say action, in order to our assistant to better recognize what's happening, or our browsers to better recognize what's happening when you when you click on a tab. Avoiding deprecating or inaccessible technologies. It was a long day, so sorry for my tongue twirls. I know that we today don't use flash technologies and that kind of stuff, but a lot of technologies we're using that can cause problems. And most of them are also JavaScript, so loading a JavaScript inappropriately and loading the fonts. That means the font style, like CSS, can cause that we have problems by loading a website and showing them appropriate. When something is missing, then the whole website is broken. That causes also the problem for all those assistive technologies. To give a little bit more context to the users. We have talked a lot of people, disability. There's no category for that, but there is a I will say it's a dumb word, but the niche of a people who are basically affected by all those things that we need to care of to help them, and it basically range from different individuals who are basically we need to pay attention. And it's not just individuals. There's a lot of groups of people, and there's a couple of groups of people that we can niche down. People with disabilities includes people with visual, auditory, motor, cognitive impairments. Also the people who have temporary impairments like broken arm, leg, loss of vision. It happens sometimes. You will poked in the eye and then you have a problem to read it. Probably will not use the assistive technologies for that, but if it lasts longer, then probably you will be think of to use it. Our grandmas, grandpas, elderly people like me. The people have basically or developing disabilities, and they will be impacted to use. Their impact will force them to use different kind of technologies that will help them to get the content more. And with the age, we of course have a problem with decreased vision or mobility. So those things basically are belonging to this niche of elderly adults. People with limited technology access. I don't know. I mean, a lot of different countries, as I mentioned, have slow internet and that kind of stuff. Maybe we need to pay attention on those. The images needs to be less in a weight. Probably we need to think about the amount of the content than of the things that we basically need to use to develop a websites, like using a lot of JavaScript and CSS. Basically, by developing the websites, we can consolidate them in one file, so we don't need to have 15 files that loads up front or preload in the front, and that cause that certain parts of the web page are not loaded or loaded later. So making them like compressed files, it will help definitely to prioritize which part of the website will be loaded firstly, styles, and then the content individually. So that's why we use, if you're using heavy images, that's why we're using the alt captions to give the users information up front what they need to expect or what they will expect to show up on that placeholder. For people who are using assistive technologies, mentioned a couple of times, screen readers, alternative keyboards, everything that they use to interact with the website, every kind of technology that they're using. For example, in our company, we had developers who had basically 20% visibility so he was basically or had basically the disability called visual impaired, and he was one of the best developers in our company. So what he did by his daily job, he used different assistive technologies like screen readers, voice recorders, whatever you call it, and he was one of the best developers. So it's I will say the disability doesn't make you unused or unuseful. I think there's a lot of ways for those people who can be the best of the best in their niche and their jobs, what they're doing daily. As we mentioned, those categories or the people who are affected, so the types of disabilities, I will say the visual disabilities, people who have low vision, color blindness. Color blindness is something that we test our designs every day when we push something. Auditory disabilities, they have problem to hearing, they're deaf, so we need to include the captions and all those subtitles to help them to get the content or the meaning of the content that they're getting or reading. Motor disability, including the people who have probably difficulty to use a mouse, keyboard, and other devices. Cognitive people, as I mentioned, people who have ADHD, other cognitive impairments, people who have problems with learning disability. So those peoples are really in a niche. I mean, I always thought that I have ADHD, and no, I'm just a pixel perfect guy. I have OCD, and it's a one sort of a deficit, or I don't know how to call it, disability. But sometimes it makes me a problem in my job because you want to be perfect, and I think I can niche it down as one of the disabilities, not the disabilities where web accessibility will help me, but definitely one of the new categories I will definitely set OCD people. Speech disability includes people who have difficulties to speech or speaking through different kind of accidents. Stuttering can be also a problem if you need to narrate something or to record something. So there's a lot of definitely mobile apps that will help you to learn how to pronounce some words or letters in order to better work with your disability. Temporary disability, we mentioned that. Broken arm, leg, sport. I'm not a big fan of sport, so that's why I don't niche me. I'm not niching me down in this temporary disability, but definitely the people can have problems to navigate or work with a mouse or the keyboard. And age-related disabilities, decreased vision, mobility, mostly older adults are related to this kind of category. So we talked a lot about the guidelines and principles, but there's a couple of things that we can do in order to make our websites a little bit more better accessible. And we mentioned that using semantic HTML, adding a lot of alt text to the images, so describing all or every elements on our web page. If we're using a lot of galleries, so be patient and just write for every image a description. It will definitely help the people to give. It will give a little bit more insights in the whole in the whole happening or event, depending what images are presenting on a website. The text needs to be readable, so pay attention on the sizes of the fonts, on the hierarchy of the fonts presenting on your web page. Also the color usability, darker versus lighter colors, how they act on a white backgrounds, on a dark background. So we always think about the light and dark themes. So those are the things related to the text readable. Testing your site with different assistive technologies. The good way is Chrome has their inspect tool where you can check the whole website if it's okay, like the whole kind of SEO, accessibility, loading status, the sizes of the images, of all those things that are basically impacting the people related to the low speed internet, to the loading the different kind of content. So it will help you definitely to check your website before you push it online. As I say, keyboard friendly. I'm still struggling with this one when I develop the websites, because sometimes I forget that, sometimes I don't know what to use, so I need to read and find all those all those commands and all those parts of code that needs to be included in our divs and spans or whatever you use, and providing captions. Of course, there's always I see that often, or I hear it often from our marketing people. So we don't have a transcript. I need to make it. There's a lot of new AI tools out there where you can just put your video and it will, from this kind of speech, will make all the transcript and the captions for use on your websites or small videos or whatever. So basically, take advantage of the AI today and make it happen. Descriptive links. This is the one topic that I have read recently, like click here, read more, explore more, like small CTAs, so basically giving more context to the people, what they need to do. And this read more is discussable because when you test your web page with the Chrome extensions, like a SEO, testing, it will say that it is not okay because it's overused everywhere. So they're suggesting, like, instead of read more, using the words like explore more. I have reused it on our company websites and rewrite every read more CTA, and I got definitely 50% more on SEO status on our web page. So we're nearly like around 90-95 score for every part of testing, and that kind of small impact basically helped us to make our website a little bit more accessible and searchable and better ranked on a Google, and also definitely improve the whole kind of accessibility. How? I don't know, but the score doesn't lie, so I'm happy with that kind of result. Providing the text, mentioned ton of times, so everything that is related to accessibility is just helping people to read and get the content better and help them to overcome their disabilities, and at the end they need to feel as a normal people who don't any kind of problems in their life from that kind of disability side. As I mentioned, books and resources who like to read. I shared the link to the presentation, so you can go to that particular screen and just click and download. I post it on my Dropbox because those are the paid books, and if I share them publicly anywhere, LinkedIn or somewhere, it will definitely cause me a problem. So please don't reshare it and don't say who gave you that. The one is Web Accessibility by Barretto, Simon, and the rest of the gang. It's a good thing. You can read it. I can give you more insight after the call, but just go and download. The second one is Accessibility for Everyone by Laura Kalbach. This is the latest edition, so far I know. And Don't Make Me Think. This book is about everything, and a lot of content is related to the web accessibility and what we need to do in order to make our sites better accessible. If you want to know about all those rules that we mentioned, go to the WCAG websites. You can read everything about accessibility and all those guidelines. Here's a checklist that can help you to make your websites accessible, better accessible. Accessibility projects. Oh, the same link. No, it's not. It's related. Just go and check it. Web AEM, accessibility guidelines, and this is the last one that I mentioned a couple of times, 5-site doing it right. It will definitely help you to see how they made their sites really good, accessible. So under every use case, there's a lot of description, what they did, how they did, and a link to the particular website. As I say, books help you. Conclusion. It was a good session. I had 50 people. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for attending and just listening and sparing your time, your free time, just to listen about this theme. I think web accessibility is really, really important aspect of designing the websites and also development. It will enable users with disability to access and use our content that we are providing on a website. Doesn't matter if that's a newsletter, news magazine, just a blog or company website. It needs to be really well made, done in order to help them to go through the content and find the information that they need. We have talked about the 4 principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And there's a lot of guidelines under every principle that we have a talk. I think following them or following most of them will help you definitely to create better websites. In addition to following the accessibility principles, it's also important to stay updated with all the best practices and guidelines. You can just go to the websites by WCAGD and just read every new update that are pushing. They're not pushing every month to update, but from time to time there's a certain rules and new guidelines and principles depending on the other organization and other law organization who are basically paying attention on those things. And I don't think in our country we don't state under the law will get any kind of penalties if our websites are not accessible for the people, but probably if you're working for as a freelancer or outsource designers for different companies, you need to pay attention on those things and definitely be in touch with your developers and talk a lot with your developers to follow all those rules. Committing accessibility. We as a creators can improve the user experience for everyone, and we can create a more inclusive and equitable web for all users. Sorry. Sorrow. And I'll say that's it. If you need to learn more about that, you can find a lot of resources, read about a lot. I think on our Friends of Figma community, there's a lot of community web pages or community pages or files, and also different events with their presentation that you can find. Just go to the community web page and just type accessibility. If you're designing with Figma, there's a lot of plugins that you can use. Me personally, I'm using a contrast plugin by Matt Smith. I don't use LE or AWY. I don't know why they don't give me the right color ratio. I don't know why, but maybe I don't like them. I don't know, but definitely there's a lot of things that can help you. Adobe has a great accessibility checker for colors. I use them also for 1 year. Definitely gives you really, really good scores and give you also a suggestion what to change and how to change. So those are things that will definitely help you to better understand. And all those things that we have talked about are mostly related to the developers, not to us designers, but we need to be aware of those things in order to create better websites and providing the better designs to our developers. And if they don't have done something that will help people with different disabilities to interact with our website, then you need to be an advocate for that and just defend your design, defend your work. in order to provide the better information for those people. So I will say thank you for listening. If you have questions, just state them there. I just will